Welcome to the North East Divide podcast. I'm your host, Jon Lane, and I'm here with Anth, as I always am, and we're going to be discussing the two largest football clubs in the North East, as we always do, Newcastle United and Sunderland. Quick note from me, if you're watching this on YouTube, as always, please like the video just to say that you liked it, I suppose. That's the crack. And then, obviously, if you've got any feedback, leave us comments, and we're available on X at North East Divide and on Instagram as well. So get involved with our socials. But we're going to open the only place where we can start, really, which is the end of Newcastle United's season, finishing in seventh heaven, kind of. So managed to scrape seventh in the end after a really kind of turbulent week. We were in a position going into the last three games. We were probably favourites to finish sixth. Sixth would guarantee us Europe. Seventh, we're in that precarious position where Man United can still fuck it up for us if they win the FA Cup final, which I'm fairly sure is not very likely. Anth, you've been saying for ages that we had something to fight for till the end of the year, unlike your lot, I suppose. How would you be feeling as a Newcastle fan, having a chance of Conference League football after kind of the season that we've had?
Me personally, if I was a Newcastle United fan, I'd be pretty pleased. In fact, I'd be over the moon. I think it's a great achievement, and I've been reading some of the articles in the Chronicle with regards to possible transfers over the summer, etc. But Eddie Howe says there's not going to be a considerable war chest, is there? At the end of the day, he doesn't know how much money he's got at his disposal. He needs to be shrewd. He needs to be smart. So I think going out and buying players for mega bucks and sort of, flagship signings, I don't know if that's going to be possible. You've got a good team spirit there. You've come good at the end of the season. You've hit some form. Great win down at Brentford. Great performance. I think Bruno got a rating of 10 out of 10 in the Evening Chronicle for his performance, which is no mean feat.
And I mean, no one gets 10 out of 10 in the Chronicle.
Exactly. I was like, I must have read it wrong, but it was pretty high as far as I'm aware. And I just thought, I would be pretty pleased. But then I was thinking, you allegedly the richest club in the world on paper, etc., blah, blah, blah. And you're thinking, well, could we have done better? I don't know. Because then you look at Villa. I mean, they didn't do well towards the end of the season. That was a freakish sort of last day result, wasn't it? But you might have those thoughts and feelings. But on the whole, if I was a Newcastle United supporter, I would be pretty happy and obviously build on that and go next season, just see if you can do better, which I think you will do. You've got to be pushing for a few places higher up the table. I think you'll do it.
I think on reflection, I think if we'd been guaranteed Europe, I'd be a little bit happier. I think Champions League, I kind of wrote off around December, end of December. I thought it was like, look, I think Villa and Spurs were light years ahead of us. Now, you look at the end of the year, we're finished 8 points behind Villa. And then you start doing the what if stuff. What if we'd beaten Man United? What if we'd beaten Brighton? What if we'd beaten Luton at home? What if we'd beaten Bournemouth at home? There's 8 points. And our goal difference was 8 better than theirs. But that's not how football works, right? Got to be really realistic about this. It's really easy to say, well, we could have beaten all these teams, but we didn't. We are where we are for a reason. And I think the last week for me encapsulated like a lot of the season frustrations. I feel like, I say just season frustrations. I think if I look further past this season, I think about the cup final. I think we bottled that. We bottled Stamford Bridge for the League Cup quarter final. We bottled it again at home against AC Milan. We bottled it on Wednesday night against Man United at Old Trafford. The worst Man United side in my lifetime, quite comfortably. And we couldn't beat them. And they had spells where they looked like the better side. I think ultimately, we were, we played long in that game. There was periods of time I felt like we looked the better side for about an hour of that game. Not altogether, but if you look over the full 90 minutes, I think we were the better side. We think created the better chances, certainly, and we just didn't take enough of them. Brighton was really disappointing again. We just didn't look on it. It's games like that where you just think, fucking hell, lads. Like you just have to turn up and beat these, and it puts the pressure on the other two. And that's what we just had to do. We had to put look, because if we went in after a win against Brighton, like that puts loads of pressure on Man United, knowing they absolutely have to beat us. and then it could be a different result, couldn't it? But look, all what ifs and whatever, and given that December we had 12 or 13 fit players, and we're playing the same 11 week after, game after game, and we're playing games every 3 or 4 days. We had the hardest cup draws that I think anyone known to man has ever seen, and you tie that in with the cup, like the domestic cup draws as well. Like, I think our domestic cup draws, we drew Man City twice, Man United, Chelsea, and Sunderland, and Blackburn. But I think looking at all of that, I mean, but then playing Sunderland after we haven't beaten you in like 12, 13 years or what have you. That was a massive high pressure game, and you can't go into the derby and play your reserves. Like, you had to go in and do a pressure job, and we did, and we battered you, and I'll keep talking about that. But ultimately, I think I can't say it's been a bad season, because I think there's been some amazing highs. I think about obviously, I think about the stay of my life. I think that was a really big moment for us as a club, to kind of take that monkey off our back of having not beaten you in so long. If I think about Man United away and the League Cup, when we absolutely dismantled them, and with our reserves, like the song, as the song goes, Kraft and Dummett at the back, Tino on the overlap, and Richie's getting 10 more years. Like, that was an incredible performance. And then, of course, PSG at home, to embarrass them the way that we did. Well deserved 4-1 win. Didn't flatter us at all. And the atmosphere that night, Anth, the most special atmosphere I've ever had in the ground. I was there with my 2 nephews, and trying not to get too emotional about it, but like, it was just an incredible moment for us all to share. And I was lucky I was doing some GoPro video with TNT that night. So there's a clip on YouTube which some of you may have already seen, of me and the boys there. So it was a really special night for a lot of different reasons, but it was just incredible to be part of that. So look, we can't look back on this season and say it's been a bad season, because there's been all those amazing. I haven't mentioned the 8-0 away at Sheffield United, and kind of big results like that as well. So but would we have liked to have finished 4th this year? Well, who wouldn't have liked to finish 4th? But we didn't kind of seize the right moments at the right time, and we didn't kind of put games to bed that a team that's going to finish 4th would do. So we didn't deserve to finish 4th. And I'm okay to say that on reflection. But yeah, what could have been?
It's been a big learning curve, hasn't it? I mean, when you've obviously referred to the PSG match, Champions League, what a big night that was for you. I mean, the support, war flags, etc. I mean, it was visually spectacular. So you want more of that. You get a taste for it. I remember working in Newcastle many, many years ago when he's played Barcelona, that famous win, 3-2, Esprit, obviously, and I just remember the atmosphere there. Not for me personally, obviously, I wasn't really asked, but it was fantastic. It was really good, and I worked in Newcastle for most of my adult life, but it was quite special. So the players will get a taste for that. They'll learn from that. If the result in the FA Cup does go your way, which I think it will, and you get the European place that your season's deserved, I think you can build from that. And who knows what will happen in the near future with regards to aiming higher up the table and possibly for 4th place, because Eddie Howe is a very shrewd and very clever manager, and I think he will invest wisely. I mean, you've been rumoured to be some free transfers that may be on the cards from the likes of Fulham and Bournemouth, defensive. So players who might, improve the squad and already preparing for next season. So that's a good thing. It can only be a good thing.
Yeah, and look, there's loads of noise from the club about we've got no money, we can't, we're handcuffed by PSR. Look, you can't go out as having the richest owners in the world and not put that message out, because it's the same as if you've got like 100 grand in the bank, you don't turn around to a builder and tell them you've got 100 grand in the bank if you want your kitchen done. You try and barter, and you can't give that impression that you've got money to burn. And Newcastle are having to do the same. People people might try and charge a premium for players and what have you. But also you have to be shrewd, and I keep saying this, look, we've got the richest owners in the world. We haven't got it's not the richest club in the world. And you just look at the other big clubs in the Premier League, and that's apparent. So there's also been an element of that. I think with Tosin and Kelly, I think there seems to be a lot of confidence that they're going to happen. It's interesting. Man United all of a sudden are saying that they're showing a bit of interest in all of that, and it just smells of a bit of an arrogance from them again. Like around, we just have to show that we're interested, and players will come to us. And I think they still will. Man United will always have a big draw, right? Regardless, yes, they're not guaranteed. They need to win the FA Cup to play in Europe next year. And this is the worst Premier League finish that they've had. And what's it been? Premier League for 32 years, so worst league finish in a long time. But having said all that, they're still Man United. But we've already spoken to Tosin apparently. So whereas Man United are trying to make that step. So I think that's the difference. I think, so let's hope we get those deals over the line. They'll be great. It'll be really interesting to see what Eddie can do with any kind of water. And I think there will no doubt be a couple of players that go out. So I think it'll be really interesting to see who does go out. We're going to do a proper season review. We're hoping to do that next week with a special guest. So let's wait and see. And so obviously we were talking to Steve Caldwell last week to do the Sunderland season review. So you're now in a position where you can start looking towards kind of all the breaking news on Weir side.
Wow.
Go on.
Yeah, it's absolutely it's hot stuff at the moment. There's not a lot happening, John, if I'm being perfectly honest. I know David Bruce has come out. Obviously, he's the new chief business officer, and he's come out with some statements with regards to where he wants the club to head after the fiasco of last season, sort of off the pitch. Obviously, the Newcastle United game and all of that carry on, which we, I keep having sort of nightmarish visions of. So he's come out with a few comments which bode well for the next season. So yeah, but other than that, off the pitch, obviously there's still the rumours going around about the manager. So apparently the top 5 names at present, you've got Rennie Marek, who's the youth coach at Bayern Munich. You've got Liam Rosenior, obviously, who Hull, I think, very unkindly let go. And
yeah, that was odd.
Yeah, it was a very odd decision, I thought, because, I mean, at championship level, I think he did really, really well. They only just missed out as well, didn't they? So that could come back to bite them on the arse in the near future, I think. And we'll wait and see what happens there. So, and then you've got is it Boris Svensson, the former Mainz manager, and then new in at number 2. Apparently, this is the top 5 allegedly. Is Peter? I cannot pronounce his surname. Peter. It's the assistant manager of Liverpool, obviously now. Klopp's gone. Peter Krashwitz, I don't know how you pronounce it. Yeah. He's come in at like a second favourite, but still up there and still at number 1 in the rumour mill is Will Still. So nothing's been sort of announced by the club. I don't know if they're looking or if they're doing sort of everything behind in the background and just trying to get a manager in and just sort of then announce it. So I think it needs to be quick though. I think it needs to be quick, and there needs to be, I don't know, more communication between the hierarchy, the club owners, and to the supporters basically. Because at the moment the rumour mill is in overdrive. We've got some free transfers that are being bandied around. What's he called from Sheffield United? I'm forgetting his name now. This is honestly Oliver Norwood. Oliver Norwood, 33-year-old. Obviously, we've just let a player of 33 go as well. So again, the model, how we're going to tweak it. Apparently, is it Watford are after him as well, and Hull City. So we'll have to see what happens there. Other than that, it's just very, very quiet. Very quiet.
The manager countdown, I was in the back of my head. I started going, duh, 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 duh. But I did resist the temptation. I think, yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing that there's names about, but nothing's being said. I think that's usually a sign of a sensibly run club when everything doesn't just like come out like weeks before. Like if you look at like Pochettino, it's been announced as left Chelsea today. But that's been rumoured for weeks. And Ten Hag, it'd be interesting to see what happens after the cup final. But that's been rumoured for ages, and the clubs that are the most batshit are the ones that leak all the stuff in advance, whereas the ones who are kind of managing stuff sensibly, tends to happen under the radar. Now, I say that we've become leakier than we were, I think. Obviously we had the issue with Emery when we wanted to bring Emery in, and it was the eve of or it might be in the same night actually as the Villarreal were playing in the Champions League, and it leaked that Emery was going to take the Newcastle job, and then he backed out. And then Eddie Howe was, in the stands on the Saturday, and it hadn't been formally announced by the club yet, but it's quite clear that Eddie Howe and Jason Tindall were there and were going to take charge. So, but I think generally, I think that's a good sign that it's not a good sign it's not happened yet. I think you need a manager in quick, and we've said this already, haven't we? But I think they will be going through a process, and if they are going through a process, that's a good thing. But I still think of those names that you've given I think it's interesting. They are looking at different options, looking at youth coaches from Bayern Munich is not a bad shout, is it really? Look at what I don't know what the guy's name is, forgive my ignorance, but the guy who was at Man City who's now in charge of Leicester. Again, he's done a remarkable job to get them back up first time. And yes, he had a good squad. He had good resources and whatever else, but you still got to do it. And then he's still playing that way. And I think that's the clubs are trying to do things differently. There's a reason Steve Bruce isn't connected with the job. And that's because he's not going to get you near promotion. He's not going to get you into the playoffs. Yeah, exactly. But Liam Rosenior, I think Liam Rosenior, again, really sensible place to look. He's got good pedigree, and he obviously is familiar with the northeast. Yeah, it's a bit further east than we're used to in Hull, but in terms of that idea around the culture and I suppose of the area and whatever else. And Steve Colwell said this to us last week, didn't he? You need somebody who's going to go in and understand the area, understand what the football club means and how important it is. So that's got to be the priority. I would hope by the time that we're talking about Sunderland on a podcast again, which will be a couple of weeks' time, that you've got someone in place really, because pre-season will be in July. So you want someone in, make sure that the plan's kind of what you want it to be, and then take things from there and really kind of build a chance. Because look, Kieran Maguire said it to me, a couple of months ago. Sunderland just need one good season.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be it's a big decision to make. I think Liam Senior is an interesting one. He was treated very fairly at Hull. I watched the interview with Hull's owner, and I mean, he did not rabbit on. He was just I sort of switched off after about the second minute because he was just going on and on and on. It was just white noise to me. But I just thought, it could be an interesting one. I've been reading some of the fans' forums as well, and they were a little bit unsure. But I mean, the uncertainty with regards to the managerial position, they're sort of saying, these coaches who are coming in from overseas, etc., and blah blah blah, they've unknown pedigree and that. But when you look at the clubs they're at, and you look how well run those clubs are, and their pedigree and their reputation for bringing young players through, and the structure of the club, etc., and the football that they play and the success that they've had, I just think, is it necessarily a bad thing? They might have a proven track record, but like you say, the Leicester manager, look at what he's done, and look at Arteta when he was assistant to Pep at Manchester City. I mean, his background, his CV of sorts of the clubs that he played for, etc. You just think, they've learned the right way. And obviously, Arteta, very unlucky, very unlucky. I sort of felt for Arsenal in the title run-in, and on the last day of the season, it was depressingly inevitable that Manchester City would win it, but they fully deserved it. Record-breaking season, fantastic football. But if I had to pick someone to win it, I wanted Arsenal to win it. So there's an example, Arteta, and who knows, he could win it next season. You never know.
We're going to go on a massive tangent here, but I'll talk really briefly about the final day of the Premier League. I think it was one of the most boring final days that we've had in my like kind of short memory of, but like I think when you're focused on the last day, like we had something to play for, right? And this is the bit this is ranty John's going to come in here, right? So there were 4 games that were televised on UK TV, right? So there was the Man City West Ham game on Sky. So of course Man City need to win to win the title. You then had on TNT Arsenal Everton.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they need to win the title. To win the title, they had to win and then hope that West Ham got a draw at the Etihad. You then had Chelsea on Sky, who, if they won, they confirmed that they were going to be in Europe. Okay. Now, there's only 2 other clubs really that had something to play for, right? You had Man United, who had to beat Brighton and hope that that Newcastle lost, and you had Newcastle, who had to beat Brentford, and if they did that, then they'd finish 7th. But if Chelsea then lost, then we'll go to 6th, right? Now, Liverpool Wolves was on Sky. Now, Liverpool were secured 3rd place. So whether they won, whether they lost, they would finish 3rd. Wolves, I think, were going to finish in the bottom half. Like, I think they ended up finishing they ended up finishing 14th, but I think they started the day 12th, right? So they've lost £6 million because they lost. What a shame, right? But this whole, like, look, if you want to do the Klopp loving, right, just do it at full time.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want that, the interviews and the presentation, all that bollocks that went along with it. Because I mean, did you know he was leaving, by the way? Because
didn't, you know what? Until Sky obviously continuously reminded us, not just during the match, but the build up to the match, maybe the week before the match.
Months of coverage if we had on this on him leaving. And look, right, yes, he's won every trophy. Like over the period of time, he won the Premier League, he won the Champions League. He, I think the only one he hadn't won for them was Europa League. Won the Super Cup. Won the look. There's all sorts of shit that they won. Right, well done. Right, great work. But it didn't need that coverage. And I just looked at that and I thought, you've got other teams that have got stuff to play for. The relegation fight was already done, right? And I'm not just saying this because I'm a Newcastle fan. Like, if we were playing, let's say the tables were turned, right, and we had a manager leaving who'd won trophies for us. I mean, that's incredible just to think that we might have a manager that's won trophies for, and he was leaving, and we had nothing to play for. That game shouldn't be televised if there's limited games being televised. Now, next season, we're not going to have this issue because all 10 Premier League games will be shown the last day of the season, right? Which is great. But don't show a game where there's literally nothing riding on it. Like, fuck all riding on this game. It was a loving, and I just couldn't get my head round it. Like, so look, I'll not discuss how I managed to watch the game, but the Brentford Newcastle game, I'll not go into detail on that. But I think for me that was the biggest frustration for me. I was just like it was an absolute disgrace that they picked that game. But if you want to then at full time show a mixture of Man City lifting the title and Klopp getting cheered by his home crowd because they're doing whatever and saying goodbye to him, like, I've got no issue with that. But don't fucking show a game where there's no on the line. Like,
I agree.
Makes no sense.
I agree. I just thought, Klopp's a character, and he brought something to the Premier League, and obviously Liverpool supporters love him, his achievements there, and he brought something to the city, didn't he? He united the city. So, he will be a big miss as a character, Premiership manager, etc. But it was a little bit too currently embarrassing, the way it was just a big sort of, long and drawn out love fest. And I thought, if you're not a Liverpool supporter, it's just not for me. Like, but all the best to Klopp because he has brightened up the Premiership. So yeah, and I know all the scouts out there feeling very sad. Well, apart from the blue off of Merseyside, but there you go. There you go.
Yeah, be interested to see how it goes from here. And look, Klopp's a great manager, but he's a bellend. And he is, and I think I really liked Klopp when he came into the league, and I thought it was good to see. I was really pleased to see him kind of take Liverpool from where they'd been to a point where they were competitive, like properly competitive for the Premier League. I think Benitez was close to winning it with Liverpool. Probably should have won it with Liverpool that year. They finished second to Man United. I think it was Man United they finished second too, but yeah. So, but the problem with Klopp is I think he then started to really believe his own hype, and he then became quite arrogant. There was some awful video of him, I think it was pre-season last year, where he swore at a fan trying to get an autograph from him because he didn't stretch his t-shirt out for him or something to sign. And I just thought, there's no need to be like that. There's no need to be that arsehole. And then, like, I just felt a lot of the stuff's been self-indulgent over the last couple of months. And they made the big thing about the photo, and then there was this video, and then there's all sorts of other stuff. And like, look, it just got to a point where you just like, look, we know he's going. But I thought, like, I was starting to think, is the guy died? Like, you know, like, it nearly got that point. You just like, what's going on? It just got beyond ridiculous for me. Right, I'm off me tangent. I'm off me.
You are like,
so Newcastle do have a couple of games to play still, Anth.
They do, yes.
So
do you know, I was, yeah. I'll let you continue because I know you're going to vent your spleen again, probably.
Go for it.
You? Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So Newcastle, after a long, grueling season, too many games, loads of injuries, worst injury crisis in my lifetime, have decided to fly 25 hours to Australia to play Spurs in a friendly, which I think is due to be played tomorrow morning, around about 11:15 our time, and then we play again at the weekend. No, it was Friday. We play on Friday, yeah. About 8:00 in the morning or something against the MLS. Oh, sorry, A League All Stars or someone like that. It's not MLS. That's America, John. Yeah. What's your thoughts on this, Anth? Right, because look, I as an American football fan, like, I like it when the NFL come to London. My team, the Patriots, playing at Wembley in October. I'm already trying to work out, is there a way I'm going to be able to go down to Wembley, watch the game in an affordable way? Can I afford to do it or not? But, you know, the Patriots haven't been to London for 12 years. So, like, I'm seriously considering it. We haven't been to Oceania for around about the same period of time, actually, maybe a little bit less than that. So there's an opportunity. There's international fans there that will want to see Newcastle play. What's your thoughts on this kind of stuff, like a post-season tour?
Well, you know, I mean, I thought we had a hell of a way to travel with regards to our pre-season friendlies, the split matches between Gateshead and Shields, you know what I mean? So I don't know what to make of it. I know Big Ange was getting interviewed on Sky Sports News earlier, and he didn't look overly happy, mind, because what is it, a 20-odd hour flight, 10,400 odd miles or whatever, and you just think that's a hell of a long way to go, like you say, with the injury list that he has had. And I know he's taken quite a few younger players over there, hasn't he? Apparently, and he's left some of the more seasoned pros who probably need a rest behind. So it's a very strange one. I don't know what the financial windfall is with regards to this for Newcastle United. Is it about? I saw something bandied around about.
Yeah,
I saw that figure bandied around. So, and I mean, it's great for the expats over there. Apparently, there's loads of supporters groups meeting up. War flags are going over there, so it'll be a big spectacle. It'll be a brilliant, you know, couple of sort of matches for them. But when you think about what you know what it's like when you finish work and you're due to go on holiday, and you're like, right, okay, then okay, here we go, and blah blah, and then you get on holiday and like, right, I can relax now. It's not exactly relaxing, is it? It's not exactly relaxing. So I'm baffled by it, but I know that you were a bit more vocal with regards to your thoughts on the subject matter.
Yeah, I think I don't have an issue with us going to Australia. I have an issue with us going to Australia at the end of the season. So I wouldn't, if it was a pre-season tour of Australia, like, and then we're doing Japan, by the way, in pre-season. So, but I think you could have probably done both of them pre-season, maybe gone to Australia, then gone to Japan. Like, they're not that far away from each other, really. I'm sure they play in the same international confederation, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So that part, like, for me, is the bit that's baffling. It's the end of the season. Like, why aren't you saying to these players in a tournament year as well? By the way, haven't just got Euros, we've got Copa America. Bruno and Joe Linton have both travelled, both likely to be in the Brazil squad for the Copa America. Kieran Trippier, I think, has travelled. He's in the England squad. Don't think Anthony Gordon has. So there's some players that haven't, and obviously Gordon was injured for the last game of the season. So they have done that. And I think the big one they've done is obviously they've taken Garan Kulyol, who's the young Australian player that we signed a couple of years ago, and he's been on loan the last 2 years. Hasn't done particularly well, but he's a big draw in Australia, so they've taken him. But yeah, obviously it's all about the money. You know, what 3 million reasons why we're going. And people may hear that and go, 3 million quid isn't a lot of money. But if you think it's probably about half of what our sleeve sponsorship is, then actually it's fairly easy revenue if you're going to go and do that for a week. Is it worth doing? It's probably the same as what the new corporate area would bring in over the course of a year. So when you start looking at it from that perspective, well, actually for a week's work, we're getting this, and then that will help with PSR. If you get 3 million in, that means you can spend 15 and all this kind of thing. They reckon pre-season and post-season, this post-season, will bring in about 10 million quid, which again is half your front shirt sponsor. It's, you know, more than what your sleeve sponsor would bring in. You can understand why clubs do it. I just think the timing's off. I do. I just think the timing's off, and that's my issue with it.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it's a baffling decision to take them that far so soon after the season's ended. I mean, you know, it's barely a week. So you just think, you know, what if the players, some of the players sustain an injury, and you know, because it is going to be a competitive couple of games, isn't it? You just think, can you afford to do that? So it's a strange one, but again, the expats over there, all the Newcastle supporters, they'll be absolutely buzzing, and you know, happy for them. It might be the only chance to get to see them for the next however many years if they don't come home very often. So and obviously a big draw. So yeah, but you just need to hope that they don't sustain any major injuries.
They'll be fucking hell on if someone gets injured in one of those. No, but they will, right?
Yeah.
They will. Given the season we've had, they'll be absolute hell on if there's injuries in that preseason tour, especially if it's a serious one. Like you've just got the end of a really grueling season, and then you know you have, you know, like Bruno does his bloody Achilles and is then going to be out. You know, like they'd be absolute hell on. And I think Bruno did, like, you know, that release clause isn't being met, I suppose. So that's the silver lining. Right. Lastly, I've got some more Newcastle news. Right. So, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this whole issue. So, Dan Ashworth, it's been reported today. Email blunder opens door to tapping up probe. So Ashworth sent a message to a Newcastle United account revealing secret exchange with incoming Man United chief Omar Barada, who was on Man City gardening leave before formal approach.
That doesn't read well, does it? That does not read well.
So, let's, the way I look at it, right? Let's not be naive, right? I think we all know that he was approached before there was a formal approach, right? Of course, those conversations are going to happen, but when I think this has come up, I think the main reason this has come up is Ashworth's trying to take Newcastle to litigation at the minute to get released from his contract early, essentially, and to say, look, you know, I'm kind of being handcuffed here. Now, he's getting paid by the club to sit and prune his roses or whatever the hell he does in his garden, right? So he's not in a bad position. Let's just say that. However, he's been stopped from going and working for Man United. Man United obviously want him in before the summer because, you know, a big part of Ashworth's remit, no doubt, is going to be transfer strategy as well as fixing the batshit club from top to bottom. And the sooner we can get in there, the sooner we can do that work. Now, we had to sit on 8-month gardening leave with Brighton. He then came to Newcastle. He was only actually at Brighton about 18 months. There's a bit of a fallacy about this. I think a lot of people think he was at Brighton for a long, long time. He wasn't. He'd been there about 18 months. Newcastle then approached and he felt that was an offer too good to refuse. I have no issue with him thinking that Man United is a really good opportunity, by the way. I think, don't get me wrong, I think our project's a really exciting one. But imagine being the person who turns around Man United, or was part of turning Man United around after the, you know, poor bastards, haven't won a Premier League in years. What a shame. But it's a massive opportunity. They haven't won a Premier League in 11 years to go there and turn them back into that club that will challenge for silverware seriously. And the sporting director is a big part of doing that. You can't deny that, and he's essentially been given a bit more power. I think he didn't like the way that it worked at Newcastle. There was a lot of kind of needing to get approval from PIF, and he didn't like that. He wanted a little bit more kind of a say and power and what have you. Essentially, he's been offered the keys. Don't have an issue with any of that. But Christ, be bloody clever. Like, if you're going to take us to litigation, don't leave a trail like that. Because now we hold all the cards. We're like, all right, okay, well, if you're going to sue us for this, we're going to sue you for that.
Yeah. He hasn't been very clever about it, has he? To be fair, I just think it was very cloak and dagger. But like you said there, if he can go to Manchester United and be responsible, or part of the reason responsible, if they can make it back up the table, past glories, and he could make a name for himself and make himself a bit of a legend. So, yeah, but a bit sly, I think. I didn't realise he'd only been at Brighton for that short period of time of 18 months. So,
Yeah.
is he a bit flighty? I don't know. Is it major ambition that's driving him? Who knows? We'll just have to wait to see what happens. But he just needs to be a bit more savvy, doesn't he? I suppose.
He does. I think, and to be fair to him, right, he was at the FA for years, right? And I think he's seen as a big reason why England are now very competitive at tournaments because, he got all when St George's Park was there, he's a big part of making sure all of that worked, but not just the men's senior side, but the underage groups and the women and everything else. And obviously the women have been very successful, won the Euros, didn't they, and have come close in the World Cup. And then the men have similarly have managed to put themselves in a position where they're favourites for Euro 24. So, in Germany, I mean, I never thought I'd hear those words out of my mouth that we'd be going to Germany and be favourites for a tournament there ahead of the Germans.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at it that way, and part of that's because of the talent that's available. Now, what Southgate does with that is for another podcast probably. But I think I found it quite interesting that he then went to Brighton, and as I say, I thought he'd been there for a while, but actually, yeah, he was only there 18 months, and then Newcastle come along, and you can understand him being intrigued by that project,
Mm-hmm.
but then you can also understand him being intrigued by the Man United project, and it makes him look a bit flighty, but I get it. I kind of understand how it's happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's someone who gets bored after 18 months and goes, oh, I fancy something else. I think he's been approached with some really big opportunities, and I think that's why he's gone. And look, I'm not too proud as a Newcastle fan to say I understand why the Man United job was attractive to him at that point, especially if he felt like he wasn't kind of getting the freedom he maybe was expecting to get at St James's. But we are going to leave it there. As I say, we are expecting next week to do our Newcastle season review, and we should have a special guest with us. I am going to keep that as a very big surprise, and you can all look forward to that next week. But Anth, again, thank you for your time. Please, as I say, if you like the video, press like. If you're listening on one of your podcast apps, please rate it as a 5-star or whatever you do. Leave comments. Let us know what you think. And engage with us on social media. And yeah, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much, and goodbye.